Paul, going back to your question, is there any more asking questions? On that last one on the impairment rating or the narrative report, when you have a good rapport with an attorney, do you still bill for that? Or is that just an individual?
Okay, no, that's a good question. I get that a lot. Is let's say you have a good rapport with the attorney, and you're, do you bill? Essentially, you're saying, do you bill for medical reports and deposition time and court time, right?
No, I'm talking about at the very end, and they want an impairment rating or a narrative report, not a depo or not a court time.
Yeah.
Would you charge?
Okay, well, here's the answer to billing. Yes, you have to bill.
Okay.
Now, here's what you do, though, is I always give a 20% discount. I give what's called a professional discount, And a professional discount is considered 20%. But here's why you have to bill. Remember, your billing is going to come up in a deposition, and it's going to come up in a court of law. Now, the insurance is not going to come up. They can't bring up third-party payers. They can't bring up the insurance company. But they're definitely going to bring up your bill. Was it justifiable? What therapies, tests you did and why you did them? What treatments you did and why you did them? Because you got to remember, they're trying to get out from pain. That's what they're trying to do. So they're going to question everything to try to get out from pain. And so if you can't substantiate it, then that helps get out from pain. So my point is, they're going to bring up the bill. Every time you're in a deposition, your bill's going to be brought up. Every time you go into court, your bill's going to be brought up. And so you have to charge the attorney unless that is your standard. It's called office policy. If that is your office policy to not charge for reports or medical reports or narratives or, in other words, it's an office policy. Now, if it's an office policy, you better have that written down as an office policy. That's what you better have. And all that has to be is at the top of the sheet of paper, it says office policy. Okay. And then you just put whatever the heck you want in that. But it better be written down. It cannot be verbal for it to be an office policy. So now that's when you can do whatever you want to anybody, by the way, as long as it's an office policy. So you can do anything that way. Now, getting back to whether or not you bill the person or the attorney. Now, these are attorneys you get along with. They're referring you patients, your buddy. So the reason you do is if it's not an office policy, it's very easy to make you look bad in a court of law. If this attorney referred you that patient, you did not charge him, but it's not office policy, and all the other attorneys get charged. Correct. Can you see how that's gonna create a huge violation of trust? Okay. That's why. Now, what I do, and by the way, your attorneys understand this and they know this. So what I do is I just have an office policy that the attorneys that I work with that refer me patients, they'll give them a professional discount. And you can give them more. You can give them 30%. You can give them 50%. Just make it an office policy. That's all. But definitely, and by the way, I don't recommend a whole lot. Honestly, I just recommend 20%. And I never did these high bills for my time for depositions and my time for narrative reports. Again, it gets back to a lot of these chiropractors that don't know how to generate business. And I call it trying to get rich on one patient. That's when they try to, have extravagant fees for a narrative report or a deposition. And that's just to me, that's called stupid. That's just killing business. That's bad business, and that's killing business. So, in summary, do charge, give a 20% discount, and don't make your fees flagrant. That's what I suggest, and I just told you why.
Okay.
What's a reasonable fee?
Here's my next question. Yeah, my next question was going to be, what's your low and what's your high on a narrative report. Because you're in different parts of the country.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because you just asked it, and you're on the West Coast, and the other guy that just asked the same thing is on the East Coast. And so both of your all standards will be totally different, especially from a rural county in the Midwest. So there's no way I can tell you what a fee is. Now, this is how you find out. This is how you find out, is you just find out what is usual standard and customary for your area. Now, I already said for the fees you bill, I always bill personal injury fees. That's what my fee schedule was always based on, was my state's personal injury fees. Workers' compensation fees. So that way, when I'm in a deposition or court and they try to attack me for my fees being too big, because they always will say that, I just say I use the standard fees for workers' compensation. It's what the state wants me to charge, and that's why I charge it. See, that's called third party. So I recommend that you get the fee list for your state for medical reports and narratives and things like that. That's what I recommend you use as your source to start with. And then you can easily just call around, whether it's the local trial lawyers association, and just call the secretary of the local trial lawyers association and just ask them, say, what is the expected fees for this state in this area? And it's not, by the way, it's not just this state. If you're in a real rural area, your fees will be significantly lower than if you're in a high urban area in the same state. So call the secretary of the Trial Lawyers Association, and they're very helpful. And just ask them, what's the high and low for narrative reports and impairment ratings? What's expected for the attorneys for this geographic area? And that's how you find out. So you base it on the workers' comp fees first, and then just call the Trial Lawyers Association and find out the standard fees. And that's how. But one of the worst things you can do is just have huge fees for your narrative reports and impairment ratings and your time for deposition. It's one of the worst things you can do.